She extends the language of sculpture in a personal and poetic way. That's how the Turner Prize jury described Veronica Ryan's work as she was given one of the art world's highest accolades. Drawing on her Caribbean heritage and environmental and social themes, her artwork's now on show at the Tate Liverpool, and she joins us from New York to tell us more about it. Veronica, thanks so much for being with us. Now let's start with that major prize. How did it feel to receive the Turner Prize? Was it something you dreamed of or aimed at?
Well, I didn't aim at it. It's wonderful to have won the prize. It felt very surreal on the day when my name was announced, and then it was pure adrenaline.
I can imagine. Now, your sculpture is very paradoxical in a way because sometimes it's heavy and imposing, sometimes light and fragile. It can resemble organic forms or man-made objects. Tell us about your approach to making 3D pieces.
Well, the work has varied over a number of years. I tend to work on several pieces simultaneously. And because I travel quite a lot, I tend to have bits and pieces, components that I travel with, which then sometimes become one piece. But really, a lot of the current work comes from award. I won an award, the Freelance Award for mid-career women artists who haven't been receiving recognition for their work. So that really enabled me to focus and concentrate on a body of work over a period of time and bring quite a lot of things together. So that really has been pivotal in more recent years to how the work has developed.
Indeed, and speaking of recent work, in 2021 you unveiled a special public art commission in the London Borough of Hackney to celebrate the Windrush generation. That's people who came to the UK from the Caribbean, people like your parents who are from Montserrat, yourself, you were born there. Tell us about these three forms: custard apple, breadfruit and soursop. What were you hoping they would convey?
Well, I wanted something celebratory because, the Windrush has been quite paradoxical as well, to use a word you used about my work. So I wanted to see how I could make work which somehow related to the Caribbean and to that whole period of British history. As a toddler, my mother used to go to Ridley Road Market, and I often went with her. And so one of the things I had recollections of was my mother buying fabrics and threads and fruit and vegetables. And so it seemed to be a way to talk about the community and about cultural heritage and background, about something which is part of the diaspora. My mother reminded me recently that those were the particular fruit and veg that she ate when she was pregnant with me. So I'm also fascinated by them because they also have medicinal properties, so they're also very healthy. And it's interesting to see the movement now, many more people have been vegan and concerned about their health and so on. So I find it intriguing that my mother, when she was quite young, in fact, chose fruit and veg that was nutritious to her body and that, has this extended herbal background that I'm really intrigued by. So I see the Caribbean, the choice of these particular fruit and veg operating on lots of different levels.
And indeed, a couple of years before those sculptures were commissioned, the Windrush generation had sadly become a term with alarming connotations in the UK because of the scandal in which some of those people were wrongly detained or threatened with deportation by the Home Office. That was part of what was called the hostile environment policy under then Home Secretary Theresa May. An independent review later said that the actions of the government were thoughtless and irrational. How do you see progress on that issue since then?
The situation continues in various ways. The whole economic global problem that we're facing, that immigrants tend to see repercussions from a perception that immigrants somehow interfering with the local economy. And of course, we're seeing people moving across the globe, moving from areas of dislocation to supposed safer havens. And so we're seeing all these different modalities of dysfunction.
Feels extremely current, as you say. Now, speaking of public commissions, public art like that one, Hank Willis Thomas has recently been in the headlines for his sculpture, The Embrace, to commemorate Martin Luther King in Boston. Now, his family say they love the sculpture, but others have said it's offensive, rude, or just badly executed. I wondered what you think about this. How much gets lost between the artist's intention and the public's reaction in these sort of cases?
Well, it's very topical at the moment, isn't it? And I think the previous Martin Luther King work that's in DC was also critiqued quite widely. Public sculptures are very complicated in a way because they have to appeal to the public. And I've been listening to all the critiques about this particular work. And, people are going to say how they feel. And I think the artist is a conceptual artist. So I think the idea of the embrace is the intention. And so, I think the intention and the reality are, quite interesting.
Now, I believe you spent a period of your career where you weren't making much money from art and you turned to found objects to waste, repurposing organic and manufactured matter with amazing results. At that time, what did you observe about our relationship with packaging, with things we throw away?
Well, in fact, I've always recycled materials. It's been part of the trajectory of my work ever since I was a student, both on my undergraduate and on the Slade. At the Slade, I used a lot of different found and made objects and often combined components with plaster and wood. And I was looking quite a lot at West African art, as well as Egyptian sarcophagi and mummies and their reliquary objects that one found and finds in sarcophagi. It meant that when I didn't have any money, that I just used more found objects. I just because that was already part of the trajectory of my work. I was collecting apple packing cushions. I put pins in, and I've got a whole body of work which isn't visible. Anything that looks interesting, I tend to collect. So it just became quite a dominant part of the work for almost 15 years.
Now, when you won the Turner Prize, it was mentioned in the press that you were the oldest person at that time to win it. But you built up your body of work over more than 40 years. You had a family too in that time. Do you think there is too much focus on youth, on speed, on making a big splash very quickly on the art scene?
I tend to think that age is a number. And I have been aware about the focus of my age. And I think that clearly some artists have an early profile and a lot of status connected with youth, and I think that I had quite an active career, actually, showing quite a lot in the 80s and up until the mid-90s, and then there was a period where the work wasn't looked at particularly. And I think that, I've tried not to focus on the meaning of being described as pensioner receives the Turner Prize, because you wonder what the underlying intention of making these kind of crass remarks. And so, but we've seen that actually women and non-white people are getting more recognition at this point. Historically, there have been movements in and out. You look at the Harlem Renaissance, for instance, and you look at periods where people are visible and disappear. So I see that conversation in a wider context.
Absolutely. I must agree with you. Veronica Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today and for your time. We'll wrap up this show with the work of another sculptor, the late Germaine Richier. The French artist built up a deeply original and radical body of work between the 1930s and the 1950s. The Pompidou Centre here in Paris is staging a retrospective of her pieces and her short pioneering career. We'll leave you with a clip. Do check out our website and our social media channels for more arts and culture. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.